Hello everybody, and welcome to the Season 2 premiere of the show with no name, just in time for Halloween. So for this episode, I'm going to talk about one of the most iconic icons of horror, the Haunted House movie. The Haunted House film is a staple of horror, used in many different ways over the years, and today I'm going to give you a list of my favorites. Of all the lists I've ever had to do, this was the hardest to order because this subgenre doesn't just contain some great horror movies, it has some of the greatest horror movies ever made. Some honorable mentions include Stir of Echoes, The Evil Dead, Insidious, and The Changeling. A few more things before we start. First off, I'm pretty lax on what can be classified as a haunted house movie. As long as there are hauntings happening in one's current place of residence, I'm fine. And secondly, I have not seen every single haunted house movie ever, so please keep that in mind before you comment. Without further ado, this is the top 10 haunted house movies. Number 10 has the distinction of being the oldest movie on this list, as well as the most British.
You first see and hear of such things. Why, I made them up.
It's rare to see a film with as much restraint and subtlety as The Innocence. It's a movie that really uses atmosphere and suspicions to create fear. And as far as I can tell, this movie does not use a single special effect, whether practical or digital. Unless you count stepping into spotlights and jump cuts effects, which I don't. This movie is able to keep the audience entertained purely through its atmosphere. The lighting, sets, angles, and cinematography create a very sinister environment. This is also helped with its theme song, O Willow Wally, one of the eeriest and creepiest songs I have ever heard. So, what's the problem? Why is this only at number 10? The story of the movie has some issues, mainly that the characters do a lot of jumping to conclusions that does get noticeable after a while. But even with all of that, The Innocence has solidified itself as a horror classic, getting the 10th spot on this list. It's here! If The Innocence is the picture of subtlety, Poltergeist is the picture of bombast, but in a good way. This film throws all it has at you, but for the most part keeps it all from getting just a little bit too ridiculous. I also enjoyed that this film isn't above joking around, delivering some genuinely funny moments. I actually found it funnier than The Evil Dead, the actual horror comedy. But it still works very well because at its core it is still a horror movie. Going in, I expected it to be beyond over the top, and at some points it is, but it did a surprisingly well job of controlling its tone, and it's a very rare case of the effects holding up extremely well over the years. But above all, I enjoy the characters in this movie. They're likable, realistic, and keep the movie grounded. But if I had to nitpick, I would say that the film does verge into silliness sometimes, but the good qualities far outweigh the bad qualities. Poltergeist is just a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed watching it. I can see the comments already. Yes, I'm putting Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, said by many to be one of the greatest movies ever, at number 8. And that's because I think it's just a little bit overrated. Okay, before y'all crucify me, I just want to make it clear that I do not dislike this film. If I did, it would not be on this list. I love its atmosphere, I love its direction. It's a very good, very scary movie. But I feel that it just had a lot of flaws that people overlook. I just think that the movie doesn't have the characters as the ones in the novel, especially Jack, who is a lot less sympathetic and likable than the one in the original story. Plus, the acting and editing gets so over the top at times, it's practically laughable. But I still enjoyed the movie. Kubrick's direction was great. The environment it created was disturbing, sinister, and uncomfortable, and special praise goes to this film's climax, which was very well done and very, very frightening. Jack Nicholson may not be good at being sympathetic, but he is great at being a psycho. Overall, while I don't think it's the greatest film ever, The Shining still works extremely well. It's a wonderful movie, more than enough for this list. There isn't really much of a market for foreign language films in the US. That's a shame, because people are missing a lot of really great movies. Case in point, the number 7 movie. El Orfanato, or The Orphanage, is a horror, drama, and mystery film all wrapped up into one. It tells the story of Laura, whose adopted son Simon disappears in their house. The plot is a mystery not only of Simon's disappearance, but also the paranormal occurrences in the home. One thing many people like about El Orfanato, including me, is that it doesn't go for the cheap shots, something even some of the greatest horror movies ever are guilty of. Definitely a high point of the film is the performance of Belén Rueda as Laura. Her performance was sympathetic, likable, and very well developed. Another thing to note is that this is one of the few films on this list that really does have a happy ending. But not in the way you would expect. I wish I could say more, but I would just recommend watching it for yourself. I don't think you'll regret it. I don't know about you, but to me, there's just no horror quite like psychological horror. There's just something about diving into somebody's mind that really interests me. This is very present in our number 6 spot.
Construction crews in here by Columbus Day, so we got a guesstimate how long?
I've got 4 really good guys. 1 week, we're gone.
That's fast.
I need the job.
In Session 9, a group of workers had to spend a week in an abandoned asylum for asbestos removal. But it becomes very clear very fast that inhaling asbestos powder is the least of their worries. There's something wrong with the location, something that apparently revolves around a past patient named Mary, who had multiple personalities. To give away any more would spoil the plot, by far the best thing about Session 9. It's interesting, disturbing, and has a very good twist at the end. And another one of the very good parts of this movie is its characters. The interactions between them are very real, which is almost always a plus. I really don't want to say any more because the twist at the end is far too good to spoil here. In closing, Session 9 has definitely earned its right as a cult film. Great acting, great writing, and a very well done and chilling climax. This is a session you won't soon forget. Well, with that we end our first part. See you on Halloween night for part 2.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight. For my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
He did the mash.
he did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the